Everybody, on location for this week's midweek chat. I was thinking I'm going to be in Milwaukee, where would be a good place. I'm going to a Brewers game tomorrow. Last couple of years when I went to a midweek Major League Baseball game, whether at Target Field or American Family Stadium here in Milwaukee where the Brewers play, I did it from the stadium, and that was fun. But I thought this year, wow, why not this place? Anybody recognize it? You ever been here? I went here first. I really, the more I reflect on my life, I really had some good Christian parenting from my parents. They not just religious stuff. They'd have me watch good stuff on public television, the Adams Chronicles, ABC when they had Roots. We watched that all the time, and taking me to church, of course. But also, I remember coming here when I was maybe 10. And they made a big deal of it. We're going to be in Milwaukee. Let's go see the Joan of Arc Chapel. So at the end of this chat, I'm going to take the camera in, and I hope it works. I hope it'll be tricky because I'll have to face it. It's in selfie mode right now, so that'll be a little tricky. But I want to go in and show you how beautiful it is. It's open till 4 o'clock. It's about 3:15 now. So this is a church. So Joan of Arc died on May 30th, 1431, and burned at the stake. Right? They thought she was a heretic, that she was a sorcerer, a witch. She was a warrior. She was a French hero. So she's a patron saint of France. I think they have a few patron saints, but she's one of them. And if you like to speak French like Bridget does, if she ever watches these, Jeanne d'Arc. We say Joan of Arc, but Jeanne d'Arc. And I don't know all the war, but some war between English interests and French interests. And she was the one that said, as a teenage girl, put armor on and led the troops with God at her side kind of thing. And but we had Ava was confirmed a couple years ago, a Regis student, and she picked as her patron saint Joan of Arc. And I said, I'm excited, Joan of Arc, because not only, she's famous, I liked her, I have this boyhood association with her. I remember the history show, everything's the same except you are there. It was like these history shows on Saturday mornings. I remember there was the burning of Joan of Arc. I thought, wow, that's interesting. But I have a few quotes. So she was, so the English, of course, didn't like her because she was having all this military success against their interests. And so they, this is before the Reformation, before Henry VIII, so they were like Catholic, and French were Catholic, and the competing interests. But the English put her on trial as a heretic, as someone who was bad as far as faith. And she's this hero, of course. And they asked her, it's just a couple quotes. There's a whole list of quotes on the web that I saw. I thought they were good, but I just had a pen and paper, so I just wrote a few. They said to her, I really like this, just as far as spirituality goes. And it dovetails with St. Ignatius Loyola, who founded the Jesuits, who founded Marquette University, where I am. So it's all kind of comes together. They said, it's just your imagination. You think God speaks to you? And she said, yeah, I think so. I got to do what God tells me. And you can imagine if you're a church authority, that could be a little frustrating. Like if I told the bishop, bishop wanted me to do something, he said, well, I don't know, Jesus told me not to. I mean, it'd be frustrating, right? People just claiming that they hear God's voice. But she did, and they said, it's just your imagination. It's not really God. It's not really Jesus. And then she said, well, how else would God speak to me if not through my imagination? It's a great answer. It's a great answer. God isn't human. God became human. But I mean, God is the creator of the universe. And how's God going to communicate with us if not through our imagination, through what we can sense is true in our hearts and all those things? And it's that miracle. How else would God speak to me if not through my imagination? And I'll just mention here, St. Ignatius, whose statue I just went by. I thought maybe I'll do the chat from St. Ignatius' statue over by the Student Center, but this is better. one of the things he's famous for is that we should use our senses in our spirituality. We shouldn't escape our bodies, but we shouldn't think that material stuff's bad, but actually use material stuff to pray. And so when what did we have last Sunday? We had the miracle of the loaves, the feeding of the multitude, the multiplication of the loaves. He would say, if you're praying that, imagine you're in the field and you hear the details. So they sat down on the grass. What does that feel like to sit down on the grass? How many people are around you and how are they dressed? What do they look like? Is there any smell in the air? Is it the spring flowers you can smell? And you see Jesus off, and you just kind of imagine him. He's talking to his disciples, or maybe you could be one of the disciples, and you're with Jesus, and you see all those people on the grass. But you kind of set the scene really, really physically, And but let's just say you're in the crowd, and then you see the apostles coming to you, and you're like, where did they get all that food? And then word starts going around that it's a miracle. He just had 5 loaves and 2 fish, and you suddenly realize that what you're eating is the fruit of a miracle. And how does that feel inside? What's your experience of chewing that bread that's feeding 5,000 people, one of whom is you, and it just came from 5 loaves and 2 fish? So that'd be one way to kind of enter that story. Or you could be one of the apostles who doubts, and you see Jesus there, and you hear the wind. You set the scene again. It says in John's account they're on a mountainside with the Sea of Galilee below them, and you just kind of imagine that on a hillside overlooking a lake, and all these people come rushing, and there's a concern: how are we going to feed them? And you feel that anxiety, and maybe you can feel what it's like to be hungry yourself, and you just paint the scene. The sounds, the sights, the feelings, and you hear Jesus say, how are we going to feed them? And you panic. You're like, I don't know. And maybe that makes you think of problems you don't know how to solve in your life. And then someone says there's these 2 fish and 5 barley loaves this little boy has. But what is that for so many? And then you hear Jesus say, bring them to me. And this is all kind of while your eyes are closed and you imagine everything. What's he doing? And then you see the miracle. The more you give, the more you have, and you see the delight of the people. Anyway, just that way of praying into Scripture uses our imagination. It's very important in St. Ignatius Loyola, and here at St. Joan of Arc Chapel, we have that quote. Another of her quotes. They asked her, "You're not in the state of grace. You're not in communion with God," and she said, "Well, if I be not in a state of grace, I pray God place me in it. And if I be in it, I pray God keeps me so." She said these good little answers. Aren't they great answers? And then there's just a little one-liner. I actually have a refrigerator magnet that Joan of Arc's looking like a little cartoon character, and you put it on my refrigerator, and it says one of her other quotes, "Act and God will act. Act and God will act." And so anyway, they weren't buying it. They were threatened by her, and they accused her of heresy, and they burned her at the stake as a martyr. There's a really lovely song by Joan Osborne called Joan of Arc about the flames going up around her. So she's a pretty famous saint, but she's not on our calendar, because if she were, it would be my anniversary of ordination. Because she died on May 30th, 1431. I was ordained on May 30th. So I always was happy. If you're in Canada, if you're in France, it'd be a big church feast day. In the U.S., it's not on our calendar. I don't know why. It seems like she's deserving. Gave her life rather than deny her faith. But, God spoke to me. God spoke to me, and I believe that. So, in case I forget, so this church was built in 1421 in France, where she lived. So they think she was in that church. And then there's a Joan of Arc stone in that church where they believe she knelt and prayed or touched or kissed. And these were brought over by someone very wealthy, you can imagine, brick by brick. And it was Long Island, New York for a while, and then someone bought it from Long Island, New York, and brought it brick by brick to the Marquette campus. They wanted it to be used for religious purposes. And so it's really quite a remarkable thing. I'll tell you a little bit more when we get in there. But I do remember my mom and dad making a big deal. Let's go to the Joan of Arc Chapel, because I think it was new to Marquette in 1970 or something. And so I was probably just here like 4 or 5 years when we came to visit it. And that's just neat when your parents can make religious stuff feel special and great, you know. So I appreciate that a lot. I'll tell my mom thanks next time I see her. So, okay, so a little bit more on that. So Ignatius, well, let's do some parish news. Blood drive this coming Monday. And it's also the week before Summerfest. So this weekend is not Summerfest, but the weekend after is Summerfest. So Summerfest, if you're watching delayed, August 10th and 11th. It's just, if you never heard of it, it's a fun celebration. There's bigger parish celebrations. There's parish celebrations that make more money. But thanks to a lot of organizational efforts and generosity of people, we hope to make about $35,000 on that fundraiser. And a lot of it comes from the raffle, but other sponsorships. People sponsor the chicken dinner, the beer tent, the band, kids games. So costs associated with that, people have sponsored. We're fully sponsored, so thank you. I think what we really need now are volunteers. So I asked Christine, anything you want me to mention on the chat? She says, yeah, she had like a list of 5 things. But if you just mention one thing, say we need volunteers, that we can't make this Summerfest a success without the volunteers. Work a little, play a lot, rather than have a handful of people work a lot and play a little, right? So you can go to the website. There's a portal to volunteer through there. There's hard copy sheets on the big bulletin board kind of divider piece of furniture against the church wall in the gathering space. And I bet you people would take a call too if that was your only option. So there's all kinds of different things to volunteer for, to help in the kitchen, to clean up afterwards, to help set up things. So I heard 2 of our teens, Sophia and Cash, are going to walk around with a 50-50 raffle. So that it takes a lot of courage and a lot of social poise for someone that age to walk around 50-50 raffles. So be kind to them if you see them walking by. So that's just real good. I've got to work up some guitar songs. So Saturday we'll have the outdoor mass at 4:30. So there won't be an indoor mass on Saturday. It's the one time a year we don't have the 4:30 mass inside. The 2 previous outdoor liturgies we planned this year were threatened by rain. So hopefully this time we'll be free and clear. We'll get a nice group out there. And then mass, and it's just a beautiful mass. A lot of community feel. There's the whole big choir will be out there, and so it'll be nice. And then afterwards, just a great meal: pulled turkey, pulled pork, mac and cheese, more good things to drink. I don't think it's a beer night. It might be. I think the beer is just the next day. And then I'm gonna play my guitar for an hour while people eat, and it's good. Should be good. So Summerfest, celebrate community. Okay. So we have the $100. I think the smaller raffle tickets are going pretty good. We have the $100 raffle tickets that if you're an odds player, like you actually want to win something in the raffle, and you have $100 you could donate, that's where your best odds are, because they're only going to sell maximum 200, and I don't think they've even sold 100 yet. A week ago they had sold 39, and one was mine. So we'll see how that goes. But raffle tickets are available. You can find the day of. You can get them after masses this weekend. Silent auction. Bring your baskets if you've made a basket for the auction, that theme basket. I've heard some of our parishioners are excited. They put one together, said we can't be there for Summerfest, but we made a basket. So that's awesome. Okay. Kitchen renovations down there should be done by Summerfest, because they need the Rorschach. Oh gosh. Oh. I had a lovely bike ride today. It was about 35 miles or something. My friend Mark lives up on the North Shore, and we went to, I keep saying Germantown, but I get Germantown mixed up with this other town. I can't think of it now. They're both 3 syllables, but they don't sound like each other's, so I don't know why I get them mixed up. But it's northeast of Germantown. And then we went over to Concordia University, a Lutheran university, and saw a beautiful, beautiful sculpture. I have a mind to just hold the phone and do the chat from there. But it's of it's a bronze of 2, like in an old fishing boat, looking out kind of, and it's either, it's Peter and Andrew being called, come and I'll make you fishers of people. And it's like they're going to get out of the boat, and they got their nets, and the Lake Michigan is just right all spread out there. And the people describing the person who wrote a little summary about the meaning of the art is by where's Riga? Latvia, I think. So Latvia, the artist from Latvia, and he emigrated when after World War II, when the Soviet Union was getting a little hard to bear. And anyway, he made his way to the U.S. and he did some art for them. But it's really a neat sculpture. I'll have to put up a photo I took on our Facebook page. But it's this eager responding to the call, getting out of the boat and seeing this world of possibilities, the open sea. As St. Ignatius Loyola, founder of the Jesuits, who founded Marquette, said, everything we do should be for the greater glory of God. And life, I think even that description said, the adventure, life is always interesting, but a Christian life is a great adventure, always seeking to hear the call of God and follow it. I thought was nice. Before I forget a few more small. So volunteer, Kelly, religious education registration will be the first half of August. Preschool and confirmation included, and everything in between, August 1st through August 14th through the website. You can also leave a voicemail for them. And okay. So how about this? St. Ignatius Loyola. Oh, yeah. Well, since I started it, this call, following God's call. I mentioned last week on the chat, discernment of spirits, how to discern that it's really God talking to you. So Joan of Arc, they said, how do you know it's God? It's just your imagination. And she said, well, how else is God going to talk to me except through my imagination, as I mentioned. I think they're playing soccer over there. It sounds like a lot of fun. And university campuses are always fun places to hang out. But even God will use our imaginations to talk to us, but also sometimes it is just our imagination. So how do we discern the difference? I talked a little bit about that last week. And a lot of it is as you ponder something, you think about it, what kind of feelings do you experience? Is it fear like horror, or is it fear like just would be something new, but underneath it is like, well, maybe I should do this. Maybe with God's strength I can do this. So a little confidence beneath the fear. Is there a peace about it? Someone made a big decision last week, and they said, I gotta make this choice. And her reason was, I just talked about it with my spouse, and I think we're just really kind of settled as we think of the future. This just feels right to us, And it comes after a lot of thought sometimes, a lot of agonizing discussion. And sometimes you don't know. One of the things Ignatius says when you really don't know, after all the effort we put forth, weighing pros and cons, praying, Lord, speak to me, tip me, I'm a balance in your hand. Just tell me which you'd prefer to do. I'm willing to do either. And that, by the way, they call it indifference, which is a positive sense of indifference. It doesn't mean you don't care. It just means whatever God wants, my ego is indifferent to it. If God just puts his little pinky finger, to use a metaphor, that says do this instead of that, I'll do it. Just as long if I get any kind of sense of what God wants, that's what I'll do. That's called blessed indifference. And so we get to that sometimes you can have that indifference and you think about it and you weigh your options, you still don't know what I should do. And Ignatius says, then flip a coin and then do that. That'll kind of test you. Like if you flip the coin, you're like, oh, I hope it's not heads. then you kind of know you're not indifferent, right? That you have a little stake in the game. So that can be really hard when you really kind of want something, but you're not sure it's what God wants. Kind of trying to sift through all that feeling. It's good to have spiritual friends to talk through things with. But he has these different rules for discernment. And the one I like is imagine you're with all respect to Emma, say you're in your 90s and on your deathbed. Emma's over 100 now. And you're remembering yourself as a younger person faced with the very choice that you have right then. Well, what do you wish you had decided? What do you wish you had decided? So, in honor of Ignatius, though, this is this principle and foundation, updated by a modern translator who tried to say, what was he really thinking? What was the substance of what Ignatius wrote? He says, this is the basis. This is base one. Before you even go trying to do God's will, make sure you're straight with all this stuff. He says, it's called the Principle and Foundation of St. Ignatius Spiritual Exercises. The goal of our life is to live with God forever. God, who loves us, gave us life. Our response of love allows God's life to flow into us without limit. All things in this world are gifts from God, insofar as they help us develop as loving persons. But if any of these gifts become the center of our lives, they displace God and so hinder our growth toward our goals. In everyday life, then, we must hold ourselves in balance before all of these created gifts, insofar as we have a choice and are not bound by some obligation. We should not fix our desires on health or sickness, wealth or poverty, success or failure, a long life or a short one. For everything has the potential of calling forth in us a deeper response to our life in God. Might have to rewind that and find it. I think at the end it really comes, and it can really be a trouble. Why wouldn't I prefer health to sickness? And I guess it's natural. What is he? We should not fix our desires on it. Our desire, primary desire, has to be, I want to be able to serve God in any circumstance. So whatever comes my way, if sickness comes my way, I'm not a failure. It's just another life circumstance. How can I serve God in my sickness? Or if I lose financial security. I mean, these things are horrible. They shake our lives. I'm not trying to say they don't, but in any situation, what's most important is still loving and serving God with all my time and all my energy, in whatever way I can. So in any life circumstance, you can do that. And so to make your first desire serving God, then everything else is kind of incidental. Of course, we prefer health and pain-free, but when those things aren't there, it helps me not just feel so shaken, because I know, well, okay, now I lost this in my life. What's the faithful response? How can I give God glory? So it's fun how Joan of Arc and St. Ignatius sort of dovetail. We're at 22 minutes. Okay, so did I miss anything? I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Olympics. I don't know what you were thinking. I love watching the Olympics. I heard I won't post this till tonight, maybe. Anyway, I heard the result of the women's team gymnastics. I didn't want to. I wanted maybe watch it in the hotel tonight. But there's this. Anyway, when I got a notification. I was texting somebody. I got a notification. It told me the results because it's delayed on our TV. But this is not. I don't mean to be judging different responses, but I can just share with you my own response. So, the whole controversy. It made a lot of news about one of the skits, sort of in the. I didn't see it live, but I read about it in the opening ceremony. A lot of people assume that they struck a pose imitating Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper, very famous, and in a way that appeared to be mocking and irreverent, and someone who loves the Lord and loves the Eucharist, I don't like that, but I guess I'm just not that easily offended by things. Maybe I should be. Maybe the church needs people that are easily offended, can be vigilant, and like Bishop Barron, he just has this great mind, and he sees all these social movements and historical, and he sees this in the context of the French movement away from Christianity and secularism, yeah, it's interesting to hear, and I'm happy to hear analyses like that. And yet, I don't know. Someone says if this happened to a Muslim, Muhammad, let's get about Muhammad, we just wouldn't have flown at all, But people think they'd get away with it if it's Christianity. And there's some question about, was it really the Last Supper? Was it a Greek mythology scene? I don't know. But if a Muslim were there's different kinds of Muslims, just like there's different kind of Christians, right? And so there's people that attack Salman Rushdie because he wrote some things about Muhammad in one of his novels. I mean, that's not like the common Muslim person. And so it's not like everybody would rise up. And would you want to be like those who extremists who would get violent about being offended? I don't hear any of the people that were offended by this skit. They're saying just double down and let's appreciate the Eucharistic more. But I do think this. I do think that when Jesus was insulted and offended, how did he react? That was my first thought as I was thinking about it. It seems like he prayed for his persecutors, and he was the suffering servant. He opened not his mouth, and so I have to be careful how I think about things, because it sort of maybe just reinforces my own sort of passivity. I have sort of a conflict-avoiding, passive personality. Maybe, I don't know. I think when I have to, rise to the occasion, I can. But I just think of it's a little tends on our image of Christ. I think of Jesus as the suffering servant, who, though he was, insulted, spat upon, all those things, just turned the other cheek and opened not his mouth. So there's that to consider too. What's the Christian response if there's been an insult in the air? Hey, so, but I just get so inspired. I certainly didn't think I'm going to not watch the Olympics because of it. Because, though I respect people who make that choice, but man, I just get so inspired by these stories. The Sunny Lee, I guess she had a kidney failure last year and gained 45 pounds in 2 weeks. I didn't know if she'd ever do gymnastics again, and then now she's the second best gymnast, and going for the all-around. She won the gold medal 4 years ago. Anyway, the swimmers, and it just makes me want to be better. When I see all they put forth, just biking today, I thought, I can't even keep up with my friend on the bike. I can do it. They train, these marathon runners do it. I can do it. So let's go. Let's just take a look. I'm going to walk this inside. I will be quiet, right? Because I think there's probably some people praying in there. And I'll try to not make it too herky-jerky. But it's a pretty fountain. I think I was here. My friend Mark, he got married at the Jesuit Church on Wisconsin Avenue. And pretty fountain. And I think they had wedding pictures here. I think that's pretty common. Marquette alumni do that. And so I'm going to walk in, and I'm going to show you just a look at the scene, and I'll turn around and I'll show you a cross with a crucifix that has no arms. And I always thought that was beautiful and meaningful to me, because you ever heard that phrase that gets associated with St. Teresa of Avila, that Christ has no body now but yours, no arms to reach out to others but yours. Can you see that? It's just a little hard for me to see the screen and everything, but so I'll show you that, and then I'll show you the altar, and then I'll show you the windows, and then I'll walk over to the statue of St. Joan of Arc in a little alcove, and that contains the St. Joan of Arc stone that says she kissed, and has been a little cooler than room temperature ever since. It's kind of a sign of the miracle. That's just what's associated with there. But okay, so let's go in here. I'll just be quiet. It is an active church. They just had a funeral here for this man, and this campus ministry has mass here. So through the intercession of St. Joan of Arc, the intercession of St. Ignatius Loyola, may we have courage in our lives. May we be peacemakers and represent the Christian faith well in our own way, in our service to one another and the love we share. God bless you all. Bye.